Something has shifted in the air around The Chosen. Dallas Jenkins and his team aren't just filming a story anymore, they're capturing the heartbeat of faith, the silence before sacrifice, and the weight of destiny pressing down on a single soul. From everything we've seen so far, The Chosen Season 6 doesn't waste a second. It opens in the dead of night, the air heavy, the tension unbearable, as Jesus walks toward the Garden of Gethsemane. Here, we'll witness something more powerful than miracles: surrender. The quiet whisper of "not my will, but yours be done" will echo like thunder through the entire season. For the first time, the series locks its focus almost entirely on a single 24-hour span. From that final prayer in the garden to the moment of crucifixion, Dallas Jenkins calls it a full-scale event. And honestly, he's not exaggerating. Every frame feels like it's carrying the weight of history. What's truly breathtaking is how the show captures the human side of divine moments. This season isn't about spectacle. It's about the stillness between the storms. The disciples aren't the brave heroes we once knew. They're terrified, confused, and broken. The man they followed for years is suddenly being hunted, and the fear on their faces tells it all. Peter, whose loyalty once roared like fire, will soon crumble under the cold pressure of the night. Judas, torn between guilt and greed, will make his fateful choice. And Jesus, calm, silent, knowing, walks straight into the darkness without resistance. That's what makes Season 6 so different. It doesn't tell us what happened, it makes us feel it. Behind the scenes, the scale is staggering. Filmed across multiple countries, including Utah, North Texas, and the ancient city of Matera in Italy, the same location where the Passion of the Christ was shot, this season pushes every boundary The Chosen ever had. It's no longer just a streaming show, it's a cinematic experience. Dallas Jenkins himself said that this season is designed to be watched with your heart racing and your soul trembling. The lighting, mostly set during nighttime scenes, paints every frame in shadows, reflecting both the physical darkness of that fateful night and the spiritual weight of what's coming. And yet, amidst all the gloom, there's an undeniable beauty, because even in his lowest moment, Jesus radiates peace. That's the paradox The Chosen captures so perfectly, the agony and the love existing side by side. As we follow him through the arrest, the false accusations, and the endless questioning, we're reminded that every step was deliberate, every silence had meaning. When the guards approach in Gethsemane, swords drawn, the disciples panic, but Jesus simply stands still. No fight, no escape, just acceptance. It's chilling to imagine that moment, not as a scene from history, but as a reality unfolding before us. From what insiders have revealed, the first episodes will revolve entirely around the trials, not just legal, but emotional ones. The interrogation before Annas and Caiaphas will expose the hypocrisy and fear that drove the leaders to destroy him. The lines will blur between justice and vengeance, and the silence of Jesus will speak louder than any defense could. Viewers will feel the frustration of the apostles, the anger of the crowd, and the hollow victory of those who thought they had won. The writing leans heavily on scripture, but it's the human performances that bring the story alive. The trembling voice, the flash of doubt, the breaking of faith. Dallas Jenkins has said that filming this season was the hardest thing he's ever done, and it's easy to see why. The emotional toll wasn't just on the actors, it was on everyone present. Jonathan Rumi, who portrays Jesus, described the shoot as spiritually draining but profoundly transforming. He said there were moments during filming when silence fell across the entire set, not because anyone was acting, but because they couldn't speak. Elizabeth Tabish, who plays Mary Magdalene, said watching those moments felt like witnessing something sacred, something too real to even process. But this isn't just pain for pain's sake. Every tear, every shadow, every heartbeat serves a purpose. The Chosen wants us to walk through this night step by step, to understand what was lost and what was given. We'll see betrayal, denial, mockery, and cruelty, but also forgiveness, courage, and unshakable love. The creators know that the closer we get to the crucifixion, the heavier it gets. Yet, instead of turning away, the show invites us to lean in, to look at the cross not as tragedy, but as triumph born through suffering. And that's so if you think you're ready for The Chosen's most emotional, gripping, and soul-stirring season yet, trust me, you're not. None of us are. As the long night deepens, silence becomes its own character. The wind moves through the olive trees of Gethsemane, and somewhere far off, the murmurs of approaching soldiers echo through the darkness. This is the turning point of everything. The disciples, half awake and terrified, barely understand what's about to unfold. They've seen storms calm and the dead rise. Yet now, in this quiet hour, their faith trembles. Judas appears, his face pale in the torchlight, and with a kiss, he sets the prophecy in motion. The chosen doesn't rush this moment. It stretches it out, making every second ache, forcing us to feel the weight of betrayal. It's not loud or violent. It's heartbreak disguised as obedience to fate. Jesus' arrest isn't filmed as a spectacle of power, but as surrender. He steps forward while his followers draw back. Peter swings his sword in a desperate act of love and fear, but Jesus stops him, reminding him that this must happen. That single glance between them says everything. The love, the confusion, the coming regret. As the soldiers bind Jesus, the night feels colder, and the camera lingers on faces rather than blades. That's the brilliance of this season. It captures not just what happened, but how it must have felt. From there, the story tightens like a noose. Jesus is taken first to Annas, the former high priest still hungry for control. The dialogue, as always, feels real, not rehearsed. You can almost hear the uneven breathing in the room, the scraping of sandals against stone. Annas questions Jesus about his followers, about his teachings, as if trying to corner a man who never hid anything. Jesus' calm reply, that he taught openly in synagogues and temples, slices through the hypocrisy like a blade. But then comes the first blow, a guard striking him across the face. In that instant, silence again. Viewers will feel the shock ripple outward, not from pain alone, but from injustice. The chosen lingers there, daring us to look at what most skip over. And while this happens, Peter follows from a distance, heart pounding. He can't leave his teacher, yet fear has already started its slow invasion. The courtyard scene, one of the most iconic moments in all scripture, builds here. Not yet complete.
Meanwhile, the Sanhedrin prepares for the trial before Caiaphas. False witnesses are dragged in, their stories clashing, their lies collapsing under their own weight. Yet chaos wins. Jesus stands still, serene in the middle of fury. Caiaphas demands an answer, and when Jesus finally speaks, his words seal his fate. "You have said so." That sentence, soft and unflinching, shifts the entire tone of the night. Rage explodes. They tear their robes. They shout blasphemy. And suddenly we realize there's no going back. The council has made its choice, and heaven remains silent. What's fascinating is how the chosen balances authenticity with emotion. The creators know that everyone already knows how this story ends, yet somehow it feels new. Because the focus isn't on the events themselves, but on the people trapped inside them. We feel Caiaphas' fear of losing control, Pilate's unease, Peter's shame, and even Judas's hollow victory. It's a masterclass in human contradiction. Nobody here is purely evil or purely good. Everyone is drowning in choices, and that makes it painfully real. Behind the camera, Dallas Jenkins and his crew worked relentlessly to keep this realism alive. They shot mostly at night, often in freezing temperatures, to capture that authentic tension. Lighting teams used actual torches and firelight, not studio rigs, to create the flickering shadows that dance across faces. Every ember feels alive. Every whisper feels personal. You're not watching a show. You're standing in the courtyard, hearing the whispers of accusation, feeling the cold bite of the night air. But the deeper beauty of Season 6 is that it never forgets its soul. In the midst of corruption and cruelty, compassion glows quietly. Mary Magdalene's eyes well with tears as she prays for her teacher. John tries to comfort her, but his voice breaks. Matthew clings to his notes, writing down fragments, as if words could hold back destiny. These quiet human details make the divine story relatable. We see the followers not as saints, but as people lost in confusion, mirroring our own struggles when faith meets fear. As dawn approaches, the world begins to stir. The high priests have achieved their goal. Jesus will be taken to the Romans. The Jewish council cannot execute him. They need Pilate's approval. And here begins a whole new layer of tension, political, brutal, and terrifyingly cold. Rome doesn't care about truth or prophecy. It cares about peace and power. Pilate, a man caught between justice and survival, faces his own crucifixion of conscience. Jonathan Rumi said in interviews that acting these later scenes felt like standing at the edge of a storm. The noise, the crowd, the chaos, and through it all, the silence of one man who refuses to fight back. At this point, the story feels less like ancient history and more like something happening right now. That's what makes The Chosen so impactful. It erases the distance between then and now. We see the corruption of leadership, the fear of the crowd, the loneliness of truth. And yet, even in despair, there's a strange sense of peace. Because Jesus isn't a victim, he's the author of what's unfolding. Every step, every word, every silence leads to redemption. By the end of this section of the story, the audience is left breathless. We've witnessed betrayal, injustice, fear, and unwavering love. And somehow, we know the worst is still to come. The night isn't over. The cross hasn't risen yet, but you can already feel its shadow stretching across the city. The Chosen Season 6 doesn't just tell us what's next, it makes us dread it, wait for it, and somehow hope through it. That's storytelling at its most sacred. Morning breaks not with light, but with tension. The city of Jerusalem wakes restless, whispers spreading through narrow streets like smoke. The temple guards are already on the move, dragging Jesus from one authority to another, as if justice could be found by passing him around. The Sanhedrin has made their judgment, but they need Rome's power to make it final. And so begins one of the darkest mornings in history, the trial before Pontius Pilate. The Chosen portrays Pilate not as a one-note villain, but as a man trapped between two worlds. He's not cruel for the sake of cruelty, he's terrified of rebellion. His career, his reputation, his survival, all hang by a thread. When Jesus is brought before him, bloodied from the night's ordeal but still standing tall, Pilate doesn't see a threat. He sees a mystery. And that's the brilliance of how Dallas Jenkins frames this moment. It's not a battle between Rome and religion. It's a confrontation between power and truth. Pilate questions him again and again, searching for a reason to condemn but finding none. "Are you the king of the Jews?" he asks, and Jesus answers calmly, "My kingdom is not of this world." That single line pierces through every political motive, every human ambition. Pilate realizes he's not talking to a rebel. He's talking to something far beyond his understanding. You can almost feel his fear shift into awe, but fear of Rome is stronger than fear of righteousness, and so the governor begins to fold under pressure. Outside, the crowd grows louder. The priests have stirred them up, and the people who once shouted, "Hosanna," now cry, "Crucify him!" The noise becomes deafening, the confusion overwhelming. And this is where The Chosen's realism shines. It doesn't present the crowd as mindless monsters. It shows their weakness, their desperation to follow whoever shouts the loudest. It's haunting because it feels so human. How often do people trade truth for comfort, justice for approval? In that sense, Season 6 isn't just about what happened 2,000 years ago. It's about us, even now. When Pilate sends Jesus to Herod, the tone changes. Herod Antipas, flashy, arrogant, and curious, wants a miracle, a show. He mocks the Son of God as if he's an entertainer, but Jesus remains silent, eyes steady, refusing to perform. The silence in that scene will say more than any speech could. When Herod grows bored, he joins in the mockery, dressing Jesus in royal robes, laughing at his supposed kingship before sending him back to Pilate. The irony is brutal. The one true king is being mocked as a false one, and the world laughs without realizing what it's doing. Back at the Praetorium, Pilate's final test begins. He tries to find a way out. He offers to release a prisoner for Passover. It's tradition, a political gesture. On one side stands Barabbas, a murderer and rebel. On the other, Jesus, innocent and silent. The choice seems obvious, but history doesn't follow logic. The crowd screams for Barabbas. The Chosen captures this moment not with spectacle, but with heartbreak. Jesus stands calm while chaos reigns. The man who brought peace to others is denied peace himself. Pilate, washing his hands, tries to convince himself he's clean, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood." But deep down, everyone knows he isn't. None of them are. And then, comes the scourging. The episode won't shy away from pain, but it won't glorify it either. It's not about showing blood. It's about showing love, enduring through agony. You'll see the Roman soldiers laughing. You'll hear the whip, but the camera will linger on Jesus' face. Not broken, but resolute. That's what makes this version so powerful. It's not about how much he suffered, it's about why he did. The silence between each strike becomes a prayer. Each wound becomes a declaration of love. When the crown of thorns is pressed onto his head, the symbolism hits hard. Here stands the King of Heaven, mocked by the world he came to save. Soldiers kneel sarcastically before him, spitting words of "Hail, King of the Jews," not knowing that someday every knee will bow for real. The Chosen's tone here is reverent but unflinching. The lighting, the music, the pacing, everything feels heavy, sacred, and unescapably real. Meanwhile, the disciples scatter. Peter, broken by his denial, weeps bitterly in the shadows. John follows at a distance, holding Mary's hand as she trembles with grief. Every character faces their own kind of crucifixion, not of flesh, but of faith. The Chosen knows how to make pain personal. When you watch it, you don't just see history, you feel your own doubts reflected back at you. The question isn't, what will happen to Jesus? It's, what would I have done if I were there? By this point, even the audience feels exhausted. The emotional weight doesn't lift. It deepens. Yet through the exhaustion, there's beauty. Because despite the humiliation, despite the pain, Jesus never stops loving. Every word he doesn't say is mercy. Every moment he stays silent is grace. It's a kind of quiet power that defies comprehension. As the Roman guards lead him away to be crucified, you can almost sense that the world itself is holding its breath. The sky grows darker, the air heavier. People retreat indoors, uneasy, though they don't know why. The city that once buzzed with life now feels suffocated by something unseen, a holy sorrow hanging in the air. Season 6 captures that feeling, not through words, but through stillness. It's as if creation itself knows what's about to happen. Dallas Jenkins once said that this season would not just depict events, it would invite us inside them. And he's done exactly that. Every scene feels alive, intimate, and sacred. Whether you're a believer or not, you can't deny the emotional power behind it. It's storytelling that transcends genre, time, and culture.